In this episode of Highlight Sundays, security issues and the YotaPhone. Hello and welcome back to Highlight Sundays. It is the 49th week of 2013 and here are your highlights. In the past, there were a set of ways in which malware transmitted either over the internet or, using a device that has been infected. But now, apparently, a new way has been discovered for this to happen. This article from Ars Technica is our PSA of the day, entitled "Scientists Develop Malware Prototype Covertly Jumps Air Gaps Using Inaudible Sound." So here's the deal. Oftentimes, when a computer is infected with a piece of malware, one of the things you'd like to do is to actually scrape information off that computer. Traditionally, the most common way to do that would be to transmit the files over the network, but of course, this might not be possible in some cases. According to the article, scientists have found a way around this problem. Instead of transmitting the data via the network, well, it just makes your computer play a series of sounds. Now, supposedly these sounds will be above the hearing threshold of 20-something kHz, which of course means that we won't be able to hear the sounds produced by this malware. However, if a hacker is nearby, what they can do is they will have a mic attached to their laptop. That mic will be picking up sounds at, above the audible threshold, and essentially trying to look for messages inside that sound. As a result, the infected computer will be able to actually so-called communicate with the actual laptop without actually transmitting any packets. Unfortunately, this article has been edited a number of times throughout the week. So originally when I first read it, it seems that they actually tested this, meaning they actually had a working prototype that they deployed in some isolated network, which they managed to actually get it to work the way they expected to. However, as of right now, I actually checked the article again and apparently this is a concept. So I'm not very sure if this has ever actually come to fruition, but what I can say is it does make sense, and thus it might actually be a viable option in the future. Unfortunately, as of right now, there isn't really any way you can work around this, but I don't think there are such malware out there yet, so hopefully this wouldn't be too much of a concern. Moving on, and still on the subject of security, we have an article from CNN. This one is entitled 2 million Facebook, Twitter, and Gmail passwords stolen in massive hack. Now, sensationalist headline warning, this isn't actually caused by a database breach. This article is just highlighting the fact that a lot of us have lacked security and as a result managed to let a particular type of malware actually steal your passwords. This article reports on data from a security firm called TrustWave. The piece of malware identified by this company is actually a keylogger. Essentially what's happening is it's just scraping the keys you type all the time and as such is able to steal passwords from you. They have actually been very nice to inform the actual companies, the actual websites that this has happened, and according to sources like Twitter or Facebook, they've actually reset passwords of the affected users. So I've just covered this article in brief. There are actually more numbers and more details regarding this particular piece of malware. So do head down to the video description, you can find the article from CNN. Now what I also want to highlight is that listed within the CNN article, they have actually linked to one of the original reports from TrustWave, the company involved, which is actually a blog post showing a list of more detailed data. So if you're interested in the statistics, this includes the actual identity of the malware, the types and number of accounts compromised, as well as the type of weak passwords they had potentially found. That has actually been linked in the CNN article, but I will also put it in the video description as well. So we move on once again. This one is still kinda on the subject of security, but reading this article actually got me thinking a little bit, but we'll get to that in its due course. Let us take a look at the article first. This article comes from Gizmodo and is entitled "Internet Password Logbooks Shouldn't Be a Thing." So essentially what's happened is, this person has found that these things exist. They're basically actual notebooks that, you're supposed to write your passwords in. What's more interesting about this is not the fact that, these books exist, because even if they don't, you can just write it down on any old piece of paper and it will be equally secure, equally not secure. But the point is, the comment section actually had a lot of interesting debate regarding this. Obviously, there is a consensus that writing down your passwords isn't safe unless you can keep the book itself safe. Suggestions include keeping the book in an actual safe, like the place where you keep your money, or at least in a locked drawer. But that aside, one of the more interesting discussions that have come up in the comment section is, what if something happens? Now, pardon the morbid discussion, but let's say if I died today, which is kind of morbid seeing as I'm recording this on my birthday, but at any rate, let's say if a person who, is active on the internet passes away, what will happen to basically all their identity? Let's say for me, I'm running, a YouTube channel with enough followers that I should probably let them know if anything happened to me. I'm running a Minecraft server, and of course I have my personal Facebook and Twitter accounts. So I'm just interested to know what are the strategies people use to actually, hold on to their passwords in the case of an emergency like this. So what I'm talking about is something actually accessible, like, in a book that someone can refer to when there is an actual need. So obviously this would actually fulfill that purpose. Of course, if you have it in a locked drawer, when something happens to you, someone must have the key. Similarly, if it's stored in a safe, someone must have the actual code for the safe. So yeah, that just got me thinking about this. Yes, I think about morbid things sometimes, but it's an interesting and sort of necessary thing to have as a backup, in case of emergencies. This is one of the things that, would be nice to have. Like, the least I would want is if something were to happen to me, that these online communities know and, well, have a reason why I'm not there anymore. Well, that got kind of deep, so let us move on to something a little less, important. This article comes from Mashable and it covers the very interesting YotaPhone. This article is entitled, Dual Screen YotaPhone Hits Shelves in Russia. So basically, the YotaPhone is an Android phone, but what sets it apart from, the rest of the Android phones is the fact that it has two screens. A 720p LCD screen on the front, and at the back there is actually an e-paper screen. And of course, the interesting properties of e-paper. For one, you can read it in basically any form of lighting conditions because it literally looks and works like paper. And of course, the fact that its use doesn't actually consume power. E-paper only consumes power when you switch screens, so when you want to actually change the content of the screen, some power will be used to refresh it. But once that's done, essentially the e-paper is drawing no power. Of course, there are its obvious limitations of being monochrome, as well as not actually very capable of displaying things quickly, things like video. But in the application of a smartphone, there are actually many uses. For example, you can show a map, in a way that doesn't draw power, which is really nice. You can use it for notifications, even though it's kind of like showing your notifications to everyone who's walking past. But you get what I mean? It still has its uses. In particular, the fact that it doesn't consume power means that it can be active the entire day and wouldn't really hurt your battery life. Now, I actually have two articles associated with this, the Mashable article, which I just covered, as well as an additional Engadget article, which goes a little bit more in depth with this particular phone. So I'm going to include both articles in the video description. The Engadget article in particular actually has a first impressions kind of video on it. You can see things like how it fits in the hand, how you interact with it, which interestingly is via gestures instead of, your normal home screen buttons. Unfortunately, the phone is kinda expensive at $600+, so what that means is I don't know if it will get very widespread kind of popularity. But at the same time, I really hope it does because the concept of using e-ink as a secondary display is a pretty smart idea. I'm of course looking forward to an even more in-depth review on this eventually, and well, we will see what people have to say about the dual screen experience. Anyway, that wraps things up for our articles this week. Just a very quick vlog segment. My phone has died on me in the exact same way it has. So remember, pretty much a year ago, I was talking about how my phone essentially stopped charging. Basically, the USB port went crazy. Sometimes it just doesn't recognize connections. At other times, it thinks it's connected all the time, even when it isn't. What's interesting is the same thing happened pretty much exactly a year ago. Kinda strange that my Galaxy Nexus decided to self-destruct at the exact same time. And no, it is not an issue of how long I used it, seeing as that I got it last May, which means I used it for about half a year, and then it went ahead and died in December. I got it fixed in January, and it lasted all the way until now, December. Anyway, I'm no conspiracy theorist, so I will not actually insist that this is the case. But, well, I'm gonna have to send my phone in for repair once again. You will see me upload weird pics of just a battery cover and a battery. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. Luckily, my school's out. It will be for the next month. So I'm just gonna spend this time to get my phone fixed. And hopefully, this will be the last time I'm doing that. Anyway, that's all there is for this episode of Highlight Sundays. If you have any comments, queries, or suggestions, please do leave a comment in the comment section below. Don't forget to check out the official Twitter account for this channel at twitter.com/0612tv. Don't forget I appreciate every like, favorite, and subscription you give me. But until next time, you're watching 0612TV.